I think if people took a broader view of what's happening with the yuan, I think that basically China's got a problem in trying to restore the value of the yuan, as opposed to the United States having a problem with the yuan going down in value. For example, if the yuan keeps falling in price, then obviously you're looking at higher inflation rates in China at a time when its economy is weaker, and therefore, people could be losing jobs and paying more money for everything that they buy, and that's clearly a political problem. But what I'm interested in is the fact that China has 5,000 loans outstanding to countries around the world. 152 countries have borrowed money from China. The amount of money involved is $6 trillion. If the yuan continues to drop in value, it's going to create significant problems with those loans, because China right now is in the same position as the big American banks were in 1975, before natural resource problems crashed the value of sovereign debt, in that cycle. And I think that China has to be very, very careful to stabilize the value of its currency in order to protect, all of the debt it has outstanding around the world.
So Dick, one of the things that President Trump, has made very evident to the entire world is that he wants the U.S. currency to relatively devalue against many of our trading partners, especially with China. The dollar is still, the U.S. dollar, the world's reserve currency. Is there a world in which any kind of dollar depreciation would actually make a dent versus all of the other currencies out there that would likely fall by more in a global race to the bottom for currencies?
Well, you see, that's the problem. There's a lack of understanding of how important it is that the United States dollar be the world reserve currency. 20 years ago, about 75% of the reserves of the central banks around the world were treasuries in the dollar. Today, it's 60%. There is a large number of countries that have formed a yuan bloc in order to get away from the dollar. Russia, for example, has now moved as much of its trading as it can out of the dollar into into the euro. You're seeing countries like Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, the Union of South Africa, Brazil, perhaps, who are doing more and more transactions in the yuan. So the net effect is, if we start tampering with the value of the dollar, sure, maybe we get some small trade benefit, but what happens in terms of borrowing money? What happens in terms of rolling over the debt that we have now? What happens to interest rates, in the United States? So I don't think that people are thinking clearly when they say that they want the dollar to weaken in value. It isn't a race to the bottom. It's a problem financially. People have got to understand that the dollar, the yuan, and other currencies are tied to financial structures, and they're not talking, or thinking about the impact on financial structures if they allow their currencies to decline.
Dick, you brought up interest rates. We've only got a few moments left here. I want to just bring up, you've been covering banks and financial institutions for a long time. Are banks ready to thrive or die off in the current yield curve environment?
In the current yield environment, the banks will thrive. I mean, basically, interest rates is the price that banks charge for the products that they sell. It's also the cost of the money that they take in to sell. And it's further the indicator of the value of the assets that they hold. In the last couple of quarters, the decline in the yield curve, across the board, has resulted in enormous increases, tens of billions of dollars, in the value of the financial assets that banks hold. You will see in the second quarter that banks will have better earnings than they had in the third quarter, will have better earnings than they've had in the third quarter in the prior year. Banks will have very strong earnings in this current quarter.